What if having a job is no longer enough to survive? Across the United States, millions of people are working, earning, and still falling behind. Not because they stopped trying, but because the cost of simply existing is rising faster than they can keep up. Rent, food, transportation, healthcare, everything is getting more expensive. Poverty used to be associated with joblessness, but today, that definition is changing. And in 2026, a quiet crisis is unfolding. Poverty is no longer just about unemployment, it's about affordability. More people are working full-time, yet struggling to cover basic needs. This is the rise of the working poor. In the United States, wages have increased in some sectors, but not fast enough to match the surge in living costs, which creates a dangerous gap. Income is rising slowly, expenses are rising rapidly, and that gap is where millions are falling through. If there is one cost driving this crisis more than anything else, it's housing. Rent prices have surged across major cities and even smaller towns. Homeownership is becoming increasingly out of reach. For many households, housing alone now consumes 30%, 40%, even 50% of total income. That leaves very little for everything else. And once housing costs rise beyond a certain point, financial stability becomes impossible. People begin to cut back on essentials or take on debt just to stay afloat. Housing is just the beginning. There are other costs that are rising quietly but consistently: electricity, water, internet, transportation. Much of this infrastructure has become increasingly expensive to maintain and operate. And in many cases, costs are passed directly to consumers. These are not optional expenses, they are essential for modern life, which means people cannot cut them out. They can only absorb the cost. And for many, that cost is becoming unbearable. Then comes the daily reality: groceries, fuel, healthcare. Prices in these categories have been rising steadily. And unlike luxury spending, these are non-negotiable. You cannot choose not to eat. You cannot ignore medical needs forever. You cannot stop commuting to work, so households are forced into difficult decisions: pay rent or pay for healthcare, buy food or pay utility bills. This is the real face of the cost of living crisis. Not dramatic collapse, but constant pressure. This is not just about inflation, it is about structure. For years, the system was built on low-cost borrowing, stable supply chains, and predictable pricing. But those conditions are changing. Now we are seeing higher interest rates and more expensive housing development, increased service costs, and greater economic uncertainty. The system is adjusting, but people are absorbing the shock. And that adjustment is pushing more households toward financial instability. The most alarming part of this crisis is who it is affecting. Not just low-income households, but the middle class. People who once felt financially secure are now struggling to save and living paycheck to paycheck, delaying major life decisions. This is not just a poverty issue, it is a stability issue. Because when the middle class weakens, the entire economy becomes more fragile. If current trends continue, we may see increased inequality and slower economic growth, greater financial stress across households. But there is also a larger shift happening. People are rethinking where they live, how they work, and what they can afford. The cost of living crisis is not just changing finances, it is changing lifestyles, and potentially, the future structure of the economy itself. The United States has long been seen as a place of opportunity. But in 2026, that opportunity is being tested, because when the cost of living rises faster than the ability to earn, survival itself becomes a challenge. This is not just about poverty, it is about affordability, and whether the system can still support the people inside it. Subscribe to Global Briefing 360 for deep insights into global economics, hidden crises, and the forces shaping our future, because sometimes the biggest problems are the ones hidden in everyday life.